Power, prestige, glory. For over 6 centuries, the House of Habsburg reigned over half of Europe. Their empire stretched from the snowy peaks of Austria to the golden palaces of Spain. They controlled armies, crowned emperors, and decided the fate of nations. But hidden behind that royal splendor was a secret, one carved into their very faces. The Habsburgs were obsessed with blood, not the kind spilled on battlefields, but the kind that flowed through their veins. To them, royal blood was sacred, untouchable, and to keep it pure, they did something that would haunt them for generations. They married each other. What began as strategy became obsession. Cousins married cousins. Uncles married nieces. The royal family trees stopped branching and started looping. And from that tangled web of royal marriages emerged one of history's most visible genetic warnings, the Habsburg Jaw. It began slowly. A slightly longer chin here, a stronger underbite there. But with each generation, the deformity deepened. By the 1500s, it had become unmistakable, the trademark of a dynasty, cursed by its own pride. In portraits of Emperor Charles V, the jaw jutts forward awkwardly, the lips hang heavy, the face elongated and off balance. Painters tried to flatter their patrons, but even the brush couldn't hide the truth. The Habsburgs had created a visible symbol of inbreeding, a family resemblance that would soon turn grotesque. To understand how this happened, we must return to the origins of their power. The Habsburgs rose from a modest castle in what is now Switzerland. Through cunning marriages, they expanded into Austria, then the Holy Roman Empire, and later Spain. Their strategy was simple: never conquer through war what you can claim through marriage. Their motto said it all. Let others wage war. You, fortunate Austria, marry. But behind that fortune lay a genetic trap. As the centuries passed, their marriages became increasingly confined within their own kin. Political alliances merged into blood alliances, and that close circle would soon begin to implode. In 1526, Emperor Charles V became the most powerful man in the world. King of Spain, ruler of Austria, lord over the Netherlands, parts of Italy, and the Americas. He was the living embodiment of divine monarchy. Yet behind his royal image, his family's genetic burden had already begun to show. Charles suffered from a pronounced jaw, drooling, and difficulty speaking. But he was nothing compared to what would come later. His descendants would bear the full cost of centuries of incest. As generation followed generation, the Habsburg Jaw became more severe, as if their DNA itself were mocking their ambition. By the 1600s, nearly every member of the Spanish branch displayed the same feature: a massive, protruding lower jaw, a drooping mouth, and an almost tragic inability to close their lips completely. But the deformity was more than cosmetic. It symbolized the decline of a dynasty and the collapse of an empire built on arrogance. At the center of this genetic tragedy stands one man, King Charles II of Spain. Born in 1661, he was the last male heir of the Spanish Habsburgs, and the most extreme product of royal inbreeding ever recorded. By the time Charles was born, his parents were so closely related that their shared ancestry made up more than a quarter of his entire DNA. To put that in perspective, genetically he was more inbred than the child of siblings. From birth, Charles was sickly and deformed. His tongue was so large he could barely speak or chew. His lower lip hung open constantly, drooling. He suffered seizures, could not walk until age 8, and was infertile his entire life. Foreign ambassadors wrote of him as short, ugly, and weak, his face dominated by that unmistakable Habsburg jaw, a symbol not just of deformity, but of destiny closing in. The people whispered that their king was bewitched. Te cayed y mal hechizado, the bewitched one. But it wasn't a curse of sorcery. It was a curse written in the code of life itself. For generations, the Habsburgs had defied nature, marrying within their own circle to preserve power. And now, nature had turned against them. Charles II's rule was a slow, tragic decline, not just of one man, but of an entire empire. Under his watch, Spain's golden age crumbled. Its wealth vanished, its armies faltered, and its territories slipped away. The king could not govern effectively. He was often confused, paranoid, and easily manipulated. In his final years, he became obsessed with demons and exorcisms, convinced that he was possessed. He died at just 38 years old, childless, frail, and mentally broken. With him died the Spanish Habsburg line. A dynasty that once ruled the world ended with a whisper. Centuries later, scientists decided to uncover what had truly happened to the Habsburgs. They pored over centuries of genealogies, portraits, and written accounts. In 2019, geneticists published a groundbreaking study analyzing 22 generations of the family, linking facial deformity to inbreeding coefficients. Their conclusion was staggering. The degree of inbreeding directly correlated with the severity of the jaw deformity. In simple terms, the more the Habsburgs married within their own bloodline, the more pronounced and debilitating their features became. It was science, confirming what history had already shown. But the Habsburg Jaw was only the visible part of their decay. Beneath the surface, generations of inbreeding carried silent consequences. Infertility, miscarriages, stillbirths, developmental disorders, all flourished within the royal chambers. Children born weak or stillborn. Kings rendered sterile, and yet they continued. To them, the idea of marrying outside was unthinkable. They saw themselves as chosen above the rest of humanity. But the cruel irony is that this belief in divine blood led them to self-destruction. Their obsession with purity became their poison. It's easy to look back now and see monsters in their portraits. The elongated faces, the heavy lips, the sorrowful eyes. But those weren't monsters. They were victims of a system that valued lineage over love, tradition over health, and pride over humanity. Imagine growing up surrounded by golden halls and servants, yet trapped in a body slowly betraying you, your face shaped by choices made long before you were born. That was the legacy of the Habsburgs. While the Spanish line perished with Charles II, the Austrian Habsburgs continued, though they, too, bore traces of the same genetic shadow. Some later rulers displayed milder forms of the jaw. Others escaped the worst of it through distant marriages, but the mark remained a lingering reminder of their dynasty's past. By the 19th century, the family had largely intermarried with outsiders, and the deformities slowly faded, but the reputation never did. The phrase Habsburg Jaw became synonymous with royal inbreeding, a warning from history that no power can defy biology forever. Beyond the portraits and medical studies, the story of the Habsburgs is also a mirror. It reflects humanity's oldest temptation, to believe that some are born superior, that bloodline can grant greatness. But the truth is simpler and far crueler. Nature doesn't care about titles or crowns, and when humans play God with their own blood, the consequences echo for generations. The Habsburgs tried to perfect their dynasty, and in doing so, they erased Italiano. Even now, the myth endures. In museums, their portraits still hang, kings and queens staring out with proud yet sorrowful faces. Visitors rarely notice the subtle forward chin, the drooping mouth. But once you know the story, it's impossible to unsee. That jawline isn't just a feature, it's a fossil, a reminder of how ambition can twist both kingdoms and genes. In the end, the Habsburg jaw is more than a deformity. It's a warning carved into history, a living record of how power, when pushed too far, turns inward and devours itself. For the Habsburgs, the pursuit of royal perfection ended in tragedy. Their bloodline, once hailed as divine, became a slow-motion collapse. Their empire, a genetic experiment gone wrong. From their palaces of marble and gold rose the faint echo of their downfall, the whisper of a curse, not from witches or enemies, but from within. So when you look at their portraits, those proud, regal faces, gazing into eternity, remember what they cost? Every chin, every twisted lip, every sorrowful eye. Tells the story of a family that thought it could outsmart nature and lost everything in the process. The Habsburg jaw isn't just history's most famous deformity. It's the face of arrogance, the proof that even empires can bleed. Because when power becomes obsession, the blood remembers.